everybody, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to share with you guys a design team project for Topflight stamps. Now, if you guys don't already know, Topflight stamps carries crafting supplies from all over the world. And this project was inspired actually by this visible image stencil called Stars and Stripes. Now, when I first got this stencil in my design team package, I thought, oh, that'll be great for 4th of July or Veterans Day or something like that. But then I got to thinking, with the 2018 Winter Olympics starting, this would be great for a Doggy Olympics project. So this is what I created. I had so much fun using this stencil to create this background. And then of course I had to include the international doggy athletes. So I'm going to include in this video a process to how I created this background. But just so you know, I used kitchen and bath adhesive caulk and a palette knife and put that through the stencil, and then I spritzed the background with some Ken Oliver color bursts. You could use watercolor, you could color that background in, you could use distress inks, whatever you wanted, but I kind of wanted this kind of bokeh effect, a kind of blurry background, but with the distinct, you know, American flag reference. And then for the little doggy images, I use the Quetzal Craft dogs. Aren't these so cute? And the Quetzal Craft accessories. And I was so surprised that the accessories included this little podium, which was perfect for this Olympic project. And I'm going to just really quickly walk you through how I altered the images so that they could be these doggy competitors from around the world. So for the American Doberman, I used this stamp, and I had to alter it so that the ears would show up beyond the top hat, which I colored up like, you know, a patriotic Uncle Sam's red, white, and blue top hat. But I had to cut off the ears of the dog and then position them so that they're at an angle so they show up beyond the hat. I didn't want the hat to just be there like that. I wanted the ears to show. So I did that, and then I added a red, white, and blue striped tie, which is right here. There's also a polka dot tie, but I thought the striped tie would go nicely with his striped top hat. And I just colored him up in the traditional kind of Doberman colors. For the British Husky, I used this little Husky guy, and I had to cover up his tongue area here with this scarf because I wanted to color up this scarf, which is just a plain, you know, striped scarf, but I gave it kind of a Burberry plaid look, and I colored that up with my Copics. But the really fine burgundy stripe in there, I really couldn't get with my Copic marker, so I ended up using a distress marker. I used the fine tip side, and I used Festive Berries for that little red stripe in that Burberry scarf. I love the way that came out. And I just colored up a little derby hat and put that on top of him as well. And then for the Italian gondolier, this one is probably the least kind of obvious reference to a particular country. But I used this little straw hat and I colored it up like it would be for a gondolier. I doodled in and colored up, added these little streamers from the gondolier hat so that it looks like the band here has little streamers like a gondolier's hat would. And then, as you can see, to add that hat onto this basset hound, I wasn't going to get the eyes at all. You know, if we're the hat to sit properly on the head, if I wanted to show the eyes as the dog was, it would be sitting on top of his hat rather than it looking like the hat is on the dog. So I did that little cartoony trick that I've seen done, which is to put the eyes on top of some hat or, you know, whatever is sitting on top of the cartoon image. And so I fussy cut those little eyes out and then plop them on top. And, you know, obviously that's not realistic, but I've seen that done on cartoons, and I actually really like the way that looked. It made the hat sit lower on the dog's head, so I really liked that. And again, I just colored up the Basset Hound and the Husky in the traditional colors of those breeds. And then I colored up the podium just to kind of complement the dogs, I wanted to repeat the red a little bit, and also bring in this yellow, which I think, you know, using the primary colors like that is kind of a no-brainer. Lastly, I added this bone, which is hanging here on some gold metallic thread. I have this DMC thread, and it's a little thin, as you can see there. So I tripled it and then tied it around the bone, and I have it hanging from the top here, and I wrapped it around the bone. I popped up all the dogs, the bone on double-sided foam dots, and then I also layered this onto black heavy-duty cardstock, but I have some space here, and that was done with just adding a sheet of fun foam underneath. So there's a good bit of dimension on this project as well. For a little finishing touch, I added glossy accents for shine on all the dog's eyes and noses, and also on this bone. The bone, it kind of represents the big prize at the Doggy Olympics, and it just turned out that positioning all these dogs this way, all the dogs' eyes are looking up at this prize. So that's my little project. I hope you enjoy the process video. So as I've mentioned, I'm using this visible image Stars and Stripes stencil, and I've cut a piece of watercolor paper. This is actually really inexpensive watercolor paper. It's by Seth Cole, and I got it at Tuesday Morning for like $3 or something years ago. It's a really heavyweight watercolor paper, and I knew I wanted to use a lot of liquid in this, so I wanted a heavyweight paper. And I also wanted it to be kind of like a really paler bouquet look so that it doesn't compete with the dogs. So this paper is actually not what I would normally recommend for watercoloring or spritzing with pigment powders, but it worked for my particular purpose because I wanted a lighter look, and it absorbs a ton of water. Now you saw I was just using a palette knife to scrape in a thin coating of this kitchen and bath adhesive caulk, and I'm doing the same thing with the stripes. And what's great about this caulk is that it's waterproof, but it is paintable, and it is a little bit flexible. It dries really relatively quickly to the touch, but for full drying, it took a few hours, and I wanted to make sure I told you that I did let this dry for a considerable amount of time. I just left it and did something else because I knew that I was going to add so much water to this project that I didn't want it lifting from the paper. But you can see here, I can just lift it, move it, the stencil, and then add more of the striping. I can also do that with the stripes. I'm doing a kind of rough look. If this was a really exacting kind of stenciling, I probably couldn't do that. But with this modeling paste alternative, it was really easy to just extend the lines further than the size of the stencil for the full width of the piece here. I'm actually going to cut this down later before I use it, but for my purposes, I wanted a bigger area to work with. And you can see here, I've already gone back, even though the stencil is overlapping the already put down stars, I could just do that really quickly off the edge, and it wasn't going to damage too much the other already stenciled in stars or stripes. Now I'm going in between the caulked areas. This is after the whole piece has dried for a few hours. I'm just laying in some water because I want to make sure when I sprinkle on the Ken Oliver color burst that the little pigment crystals, the powder, will actually stick to the wet areas better. Now I'm just tapping the back of the bottle. That's a common thing to do if you squeeze the bottle, which you're prone to do just because of the shape and the feel of the bottle. You'll get big globs of powder, so it's really better to tap the back. And now I'm using some Heidi Swapp Color Shine. This is a sheer. I just wanted to have a little shimmer in this project. And now what I'm doing is I'm dabbing off the pigment powder from the stars. I'm actually going to go back in and wet the stars again with my just plain water to reactivate the crystals so I can lift more of it off of, more of the crystals off of the stars. See how the stars are appearing more white and bright as compared to the pigmented background. And now I'm going to do the same thing with a couple of red Ken Oliver color bursts. By the way, if you're interested in any of the Copic colors or the Ken Oliver color burst colors that I use, please check out my blog post, which I will link to in the description box below. All of the materials that I used are always listed and linked in my blog post. And again, I'm just tapping out the pigment powders onto the striped area now, and I'm spritzing again with the Heidi Swapp Color Shine, and I'm going back in and dabbing off of the stripes. For whatever reason, the red pigments seem to attach much more to the striped areas than the blue pigment powders did to the stars. So I'm gonna have to go back in and again re-wet the striped areas and dab off the pigments from the striped areas to kind of maintain their crisper white look so that it contrasts with the backgrounds. I'm not going to get a plain white, obviously, but that's okay. I kind of wanted this more distressed, artsy look anyway. I just wanted the stripes to be a little bit more apparent than they would be if I didn't lift up some of this color. And as you can see, just wetting it with a paintbrush and then dabbing off the color works pretty well. I just have to make sure that I turn the tissue around so that I don't reapply more of the pigment. I'm gonna do a second coating. Actually, I think I don't videotape all of it, but I do 3 rounds of the color for the red stripes and the blue background for the stars. But it's basically the same process over, tapping on the pigments, spritzing on with the Heidi Swapp Color Shine. For the removal of the color from the stripes and the stars, I do that with plain water. I'm not using more color shine for that because I don't want to waste that sparkle color shine in those areas. So I'm just using a little cup of water and reactivating. You saw there was a lot of pigment on that stripe. I did want to just really quickly also mention for the dogs, I put lots and lots of foam dots on the backside of all of the dogs. I wanted to make sure that it was fully supported, this whole scene here. And you see, I'm pointing out the black areas on those foam dots. I did that with a Faber-Castell Pitt artist pen because I didn't want the white of the foam dots to show on the edges of the popped up dogs. And that's it for this process video. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, if you're interested in any of these products, the stencils or the stamps, please check out Topflight Stamps. They have an awesome selection of international crafty goodies from all over the world. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.